All right, let's jump right into this explainer. We're going to explore a massive, totally counterintuitive shift in how we actually find inner peace. Now, for decades, the mainstream advice for mental tension has been pretty simple, right? Just meditate. But what if the very tool we're using to seek peace is actually the trap keeping us in misery? Today, we're unpacking a fascinating paradigm that turns literally everything we know about spiritual seeking completely upside down. Take a look at this quote. Ashtavakra Maharishi's advice is honestly shocking, and it challenges everything we think we know about spirituality. I mean, it sounds almost heretical, right? When the entire world is constantly praising meditation, this renowned sage, the very guy who bestowed enlightenment upon King Janaka, categorically stated that meditation is not only unnecessary, but it actually creates bondage. Now, before we completely reject this bold claim, I want you to drop that defensive advocate mindset for a second and become a neutral judge so we can truly examine the evidence together. Look, if you're deeply invested in meditation, your first instinct is probably going to be to argue. But an advocate only defends their established side. A judge, on the other hand, listens to the evidence neutrally to uncover the actual truth. So let's step into the judge's robes for the next few minutes. We really have to question the very root of human misery here, and honestly, our attempts to cure it. The staggering claim is that getting enlightenment is actually very easy, but our intense meditation practices are actively preventing it. Crazy, right? Well, to understand why, we first have to understand the exact mechanics of sorrow. So the crucial point here is that whenever we demand pleasure or fight against what is actually happening in our lives, we create intense psychological pain. Think about it this way. If someone else's car catches fire on the side of the road, you might watch it with, mild amusement or curiosity. But if it's your car, you feel like you yourself are burning. Why is that? It's attachment. And when that attachment is threatened, it contradicts our will. This demand for a pleasurable outcome, this desire, is the literal root cause of all our mental agony. And this creates an endless, exhausting trap, because trying to escape sorrow through mental effort is just another desire, and it creates even more conflict. You feel sorrow, right? That's pain. So naturally, you desire to conquer the sorrow. That desire prompts you to meditate, to really put in that mental effort. But wanting a desire-free state is, ironically, just another desire. We are literally creating misery in the name of seeking peace. Our effort is like taking a medicine that actively multiplies the disease. Section 1. When the effort stops. Case studies. Let's look at historical evidence by examining the heroes of enlightenment. Buddha's rigorous mental control actually failed him completely. Enlightenment only arrived when he ground to a desperate halt. He tried everything: intense meditation, severe penances, literally tearing his body and mind to pieces, and he failed miserably. It was only when he sat under a tree in utter despondency, completely giving up his search, that his mind naturally shifted into a new dimension. Without a single ounce of effort, the sorrow just vanished. And this brilliantly illustrates the exact same pattern with J. Krishnamurti and Ramana Maharishi. Complete surrender of effort, not striving, is what opened the door. J.K. practiced secret yogas and achieved these deep trances, but no liberation. It wasn't until his brother tragically died, leaving him totally shattered and devoid of all inner effort, that the door finally opened. Similarly, Ramana Maharishi attained it as a young boy simply by fully accepting a sudden intense fear of death without fighting it at all. Section 2. Ice versus water. To understand why effort fails, we really need to demystify two ancient Sanskrit concepts that map the mind's mechanics. First, we have monolaya, which is the mind frozen into ice through intense effort and experience. Then there's mononasa, which is the mind's natural, innocent, free-flowing liquid state. Think of your mind like water. If you pour it into a cup, it naturally takes that shape. When you empty it, it's formless again. That natural, fluid, innocent state is mononasa. But when we exert effort, like concentrating super hard on a lecture, clinging desperately to a joy, or forcing a meditation session, our mind freezes into a specific, hard shape. That is monolaya. It's ice. It's artificial, and it takes time to melt back to its natural, flowing state. So, logically, we ask how to transition from that frozen state back to the liquid state. But the answer reveals an absolutely incredible illusion. We think, okay, I want to leave my frozen monolala state and enter the beautiful, flowing monomolasa state. But who is the I making that demand? The I consciousness is actually just a product of monolaya, meaning your ego, trying to achieve enlightenment, is literally an impossible paradox. Think about it like a dream. When you dream of flying, your mind creates the role of a pilot. When the dream shifts to a train, you suddenly become a passenger. The I is just an illusion generated by the current experience. So the very I that wants to achieve enlightenment is made of the frozen ice. The ice cannot enter the liquid state. It's like the sun trying to chase darkness. It is physically impossible. So, since demanding salvation just creates more struggle and strengthens that frozen mind, we hit a massive psychological roadblock. Any action we take, any meditation we try to force, just adds another thick layer of ice. So, what on earth do we actually do? The enlightened saints advise samma iru, which is a Tamil phrase that translates to do nothing. Now, this isn't an action you perform. It's a profound understanding that there is nothing you can do. Let me repeat that because it's absolutely crucial. It is not a physical action. You don't sit there and try to do nothing. It is a deep intellectual clarity of your own absolute inability to fix your mind. When you truly, genuinely realize that every effort you make is useless, your mind's struggling machinery simply grinds to a halt on its own.
Think of an enthusiastic teacher guiding you. If you hit a bad note on a piano, you don't aggressively fight it to stop the sound, right? You just let it naturally fade. Every psychological feeling, fear, anger, joy, is just a piano key being struck by a circumstance in your life. The sound only lasts for a fraction of a second, but when we hate the sound of our own sorrow, we fight it. And fighting it is exactly like pressing that same piano key over and over again. We are renewing our own pain. By doing nothing, we just let the bad note fade away into silence.
Section 3. The simplicity of enlightenment. This brings us to the most liberating realization of all regarding human consciousness. Enlightenment is some rare, mystical superpower reserved for monks in caves. It's simply the absolute, sincere acceptance of our own ignorance and our inability to control our psychological world. We usually assume enlightened people have some divine upgraded intellect or live in a permanent state of bliss. Nope. They simply understand that the inner world cannot be manipulated by effort. They just accept their inner happenings without protest. The only thing keeping you from this liquid state is holding on to rigid beliefs. Imagine a man going to an appliance store wanting to buy a fridge. He points to a washing machine and demands to buy it. The manager obviously refuses. So the man comes back in a disguise, points to the exact same machine, and gets rejected again. The manager says, "Look, only you would stubbornly mistake a washing machine for a fridge." Our obstinacy, our absolute insistence that we must fix our minds through effort is the only real barrier here. When you completely stop trying to fix your mind through rigorous meditation, the free-flowing, liquid state of Mananosa returns to its natural, beautiful equilibrium. You see, there is no real hierarchy of feelings. Sorrow is not evil. Joy is not divine. They're all just passing experiences. Let them come freely and let them go freely without trying to capture them. When your inner effort completely stops, your mind naturally rests in that beautiful, flowing water state.
So I want to leave you with this final provocative thought to take away from this explainer. The next time you face psychological pain, will you have the courage to simply do nothing? Instead of fighting the pain, instead of rushing to meditate it away, can you dare to just sit in the profound clarity of your own inability and let the music naturally fade?